4 or so hours. When I was 18 I got a job at a grocery store, along with 3 others. We all started training together. On the first day we were training in the evening, and one girl asked to go home. She said her head hurt. They said fine. She clocked out, went to grab a grocery cart and started filling it with beer and liquor. The store manager walked over and asked her if she was having a party. She said yes. Didn't even try to come up with an excuse. Just, yeah, I am, so I needed to leave early on my first day. Basically. He fired her. At one company, the best hardware design engineer left every day right at 5 o'clock, and usually took a short nap after lunch, too. But when he was working, he outproduced the other engineers and delivered better designs, too. I followed my boss one day when he went to ask him a question. The boss saw he had his head down on his folded arms, turned to me with his finger on his lips, and quietly backed out and closed his office door. When I worked at a grocery store, the firefighters were always the best. They eat a lot and it's a pretty big group, so they would have huge orders, but they would always tag team bag as quick as I could scan, and far quicker than any bagger. Fun group to chat with as I'm scanning, too, super polite, always paid for their $1,000 order by card, so I never had to count cash, and never by check either, thank God. They would even always use the scales, printers in the produce department to weigh out and label their produce, which, even though I'm a PLU god, it's still faster for me to just scan the barcode. Guy got hired, went through training and all that jazz. First day on the floor, he disappeared for 3 hours and then came back high as fuck on like meth or something. A manager found him in the bathroom aisle, staring at himself in the mirror. Said manager looked at the cameras after firing him. The guy was there staring at himself for at least 30 plus minutes. I worked for a big home improvement store that I won't name. All I can say is the stores are orange. We had a guy come into work shit-faced and run one of the forklifts into the outdoor storage racks with customers around. Another employee forcibly removed him from the lift and dragged him to the back. Dude was given 2 options. Walk and potentially face criminal charges, or go to an inpatient treatment center on the company's dime, and his job would be there if he wanted it after he got out. I can honestly say it's the one actually good thing I ever saw the company do at a corporate level. This was just a summer job at a fast food place. We had a new girl start, and within 2 days it was apparent she was an idiot, and everyone knew that. You could already see the manager questioning his decision. Then on her 3rd day of work she said she couldn't come in because her mom was in a car accident and in the hospital. Turns out that's an easy thing to disprove in a relatively small town. Sounds like an engineer my company hired. He was a PhD and really hit it off with the guys in management. Had some female colleagues working under his direction, and he was an absolute dick, demeaned their work, blamed them for things not working. Now my colleagues were excellent formulation chemists. He was brought on to lead a new formulation project and it wasn't working. He would tell them how to do it and it never worked. He kept blaming them for doing it wrong. My coworker got fed up and called him on his bullshit during a big meeting with a prepared presentation of describing what they tried, how thoroughly they tried it, why what he proposed would never work, and an alternative solution. He was pissed. But the management guys were extremely knowledgeable and started asking him questions, and it was clear he couldn't answer. Turns out, his wife has a PhD too, and she pretty much did all of his degree work for him, both from a culture where women are not treated equally. He knew absolutely nothing. Not only that, but once everyone got to talking, it was clear just how massive an asshole this guy was. Sadly, my colleagues had to deal with this for months before everything was said and done. This is where the line "when somebody tells you who they are, believe them" comes in. I don't have a fancy job, but I work in food service. We hired a high schooler and on their first week they bragged to me about plagiarizing. Turns out, they had the most interesting life ever because they wound up calling off or leaving early a bunch of times after that. Their parents came in one day and I was so close to asking them about all the emergencies that had been going on, but decided against it. I knew she was lying. She probably knew that I knew she was a liar, and their parents were being nice enough that it didn't seem worth it. Before their first day on orientation, I got hired for a manufacturing job through Manpower, a temp agency. Me and a friend of my wife were both supposed to start on Monday at the plant for a week-long orientation. She got into a fender bender on her way to orientation, and called them to say that she'd be a bit late, that she just needed to wait on the police to give a statement. The manager told her not to bother ever coming in. Girl was torn up. She took pictures and the police report into the hiring manager, tried to explain things to the company HR managers, but no dice. She was fired before ever clocking in. In college I worked on software for a company that owned a /1 million square foot warehouse full of bales of cotton a guy was caught smoking in. They roughed him up a bit. I thought that was going too far until a company we sold to had a huge fire that was a 42-alarm fire. A big fire in a city might be, for example, a 3-alarm fire where 3 different departments respond. They had 42 respond, including 2 different fire departments from railroads. A guy I worked with there said their 200,000-gallon fire pond was emptied without even making a dent in the fire. I was the sous chef at a small quaint New England country inn. We had a dishwasher we were pretty sure was drinking at work named Jim. He'd show up with a quart bottle of orange juice that was a little too full and not quite the right color. He would get pretty sloppy by the end of the night. The chef and I both knew he was drinking. I told Chef we should just grab his bottle and check it. Chef said he checked with the owner and she told him we couldn't. I'd why? But we were looking for a reason to get rid of him. I slipped in the bake shop and completely wiped out. Dropped a couple cheesecakes I was carrying out of the oven and spilled the water bath all over myself. Burned the shit out of myself and I was pissed. Carried the remains of my cheesecakes into the dish pit just cursing a streak. The drunk dishwasher said to me, "You kiss your mama with that mouth?" I turned around and said, "I fucking kissed yours." He started challenging me to a fight and said he was going to kick my ass. Which I found pretty funny, and so I yelled to Chef, "Hey Chef, Jim says he's going to kick my ass." Chef asked him if that was true. Jim said, "Yeah, I'm going to kill him." Chef said, "Great, you're fired." He stormed off and left his OJ behind. That bottle was probably at least half vodka. I was fired on my second day as a line cook at a Mitzel's restaurant in Washington State back in the 90s. Turns out I was hired just to threaten the job security of a longtime line cook with an attitude problem, to keep him in line. He got the message and apologized to the manager, and I was fired for breaking a yolk when flipping fried eggs one time. I'd been a line cook for a few years by then and thought I was doing pretty good. I was taken out the back door and terminated on day 2. Edit. This really seems to be blowing up. Happened in Oak Harbor back in mid-1990s, so yes, I did find another job since then. I was pissed, but got over it quickly. Cooking for a living was hard work, standing in a hot kitchen for 10 hours at a time, going home splattered with grease, getting yelled at by waitstaff and management. I don't do it anymore. Thanks for all the hugs awards, guys. I used to do a lot of field work on site investigation programs. Basically we'd hang out on a drill rig while the drillers took rock cores. We'd log the cores, take photos, do some downhole tests, etc. New engineer gets sent to site and gets assigned the night shift. Some people love night shift, but most people don't. Hence sticking the junior with night shift. After 5 nights he calls the office and says he wants to come home because he's freezing and he hates it and he can't do it. Not clear to me if he quit or got fired, but it became plain pretty quickly that this job wasn't for him. I got pulled onto that program, and I asked the drillers what the guy's deal was. They had a propane heater in the back of their van, and despite repeated invitations to sit in the back of the van, Buddy just sat in his truck all night and shivered. In the middle of February, I got hired as a long-term temp with one other person to do some basic data entry work at a major brand pretty much everyone has heard of. And it was at their corporate headquarters, so pretty prestigious. Anyway, we went through all of this onboarding stuff in the morning that required us to get photo IDs and figure out parking and all that stuff. Then after 2 or 3 hours we were introduced to one of the employees in our new department who began going over what we were going to be doing. None of it seemed overly difficult, and I figured that while it was new system I had never used before, I'd be able to work it out in a few days as long as I asked questions and took notes. And that was the thing that made me realize that the other person who got hired with me probably lied on her resume and was completely out of her depth. She didn't take any notes and didn't ask any questions. And whenever I glanced at her I could see flashes of panic on her face. Well, lunchtime came, and when we came back she said that another company had called her and offered her a permanent position and she couldn't work with us any longer. Both me and the person training us knew what was going on, but I'll give the other lady credit for finding a way out without losing face too badly. The takeaway here is, yes, fake it until you make it can and does work. But you gotta be able to fake it. You can't fake faking it. We had a new guy come in, go through all of the training on starting in our factory, lockout, tag out and all of that stuff. Said he was an electrician. Then the very first job he was asked to do, he was found working on a machine with the power locked on. There are so many things wrong with that in an industrial setting, it's unbelievable. My boss pulled him out of the machine, said you're too stupid to work here, and walked him out of the building. I think he was an actual employee there for 3 days at that point, and this was his first day actually on the production floor and not in training. Bonus story, because I apparently can't read. We had a guy go through the interview process, come in for his first day, take a tour of the plant and go to his car and go home. It was a lime, no, not the fruit, processing plant. 2500 F, 1400 C, kilns that turn limestone into activated lime. The whole place is filthy dirty all of the time, everything about that job sucked. I made it 4 months before the shit management and shit working conditions outweighed the pay. I am not surprised we had so many people quit within the first couple days or weeks of employment there, but this one guy was the fastest. Thank you for watching and remember to subscribe.